Hey, we're talking about the two biggest, baddest tablets on the market today. Samsung's new Galaxy Tab S8 Ultra and the iPad Pro 12.9. If you are looking for a big tablet, really these are the only two choices you've got. You could look at a Surface Pro 8. I've done a review on that previously. You can check it out if you want. It's a great tablet. It's a great two-in-one device, but it is a Windows first device. It's a PC first. It's made for mouse keyboard first and touch second. These two, on the other hand, are made for a touch first, mobile first environment, and then they have some secondary use in a more traditional keyboard mouse setting. So what do I think about these things? First things first, let's talk about look and feel. I would never be the kind of person that would say an iPad Pro looks out of date, like old-fashioned. But it's interesting because when you hold it against the new Galaxy Tab, it feels old-fashioned. It feels thick and chunky because the Samsung is slimmer. And I know it's only a couple of millimeters or whatever. Sometimes what you read on paper doesn't translate the way you would think in reality. And as I hold these two up, trying to give you a good view here, I mean, they're both thin tablets, don't get me wrong. But holy moly, there's some voodoo going on with Samsung. This thing is thin. And while we're talking about thin, look at the thickness of these bezels. iPads are thin, the Galaxies are thinner. Now in use, I gotta tell you, something I've noticed with the Galaxy, I'm holding it in my hand, the insides of my palm are actually too fat, if you wanna call it that, and they will go past that bezel a little bit, and the palm rejection is not as strong. So that's a bit of a ding on Samsung's part. You made these awesome thin bezels, but holding it, it thinks I'm touching, and then when I'm trying to do something else with my other finger, it can be a bit of a pain. I've never ever had that problem with an iPad Pro. So definitely kudos to Apple. I don't know if it's the software palm rejection, I don't know if it's the slightly thicker bezel, and you just need those extra few millimeters for an average hand, but it definitely works. Speakers, you know that the iPad sound is phenomenal. Speakers on all four sides. I don't know how they get the volume and the bass that they get, but holy moly, do they get it. Samsung also has speakers on four sides, but let me play you some music so you can hear for yourself. All right, so here we go. One of my new favorite artists, Ann Wilson. She's got an album coming out soon. You like a little bit of Christian country, then she's probably a good mix for you, but let's listen to this. We're gonna go Samsung first. This is full volume on the Galaxy Tab S8. Now I'm going to turn the volume down a little bit because that definitely sounded distorted and not great. So this is going to be about a half volume on the Galaxy Tab S8. No distortion, sounds great, not very bassy, not a lot of depth to it, but it's perfectly acceptable to listen to, and it's a lot better than listening on a cell phone. Now we're going to go to the iPad Pro, full volume, here we go. Kind of cool. I play it on one and the other one moves along with it. Go Spotify. On full volume, the iPad Pro is definitely better. It's clearer. I don't know if it's as loud, but the music's more enjoyable because it's clearer and you can hear everything. So we're going to take this down to half volume as well. So it's interesting because again, it sounds better, but it didn't have that same distortion at the full level, so definitely giving that to the iPad. Overall, it does sound about the same as far as fullness, maybe slightly better, but at half volume, I think these things are pretty much neck and neck. You're not really gonna notice a whole lot of difference. Camera bumps on the back. Obviously, the iPad has the big square camera bump, but the Galaxy has one too. It's a little bit smaller, and the other thing to notice with the Galaxy is you have this strip over here, which is where your S Pen's gonna plug in. No, it's not going to plug in. It's where your S Pen is going to magnetize and it's going to charge on the back of it, iPad charge on the side. So camera bump's a little smaller. I haven't done a camera test, so I'm not going to talk about the quality of the cameras. Let's talk about the screens themselves and how they actually look. You know I'm a fan of Samsung AMOLED, and this is absolutely one of those moments where the iPad screen is beautiful. Do not get me wrong, it looks sensational, but make no mistake about it, the Samsung screen is magnificent. If you were just buying these for how they look on the screens themselves, something that's really just amazing to me, you wouldn't think that 14.6 inch screen was that much bigger than a 12.9, but holy moly is it bigger. There is so much more at the bottom of the screen. I was looking at Google Trends the other day. I had a whole other section on the Samsung versus the iPad Pro. Whether that's important to you or not, that's down to you. I'm just telling you, that extra height makes the world of difference, and it does make the iPad look and feel a little bit stubby and stocky, but it's not really a negative to the iPad because it's still a great big screen that's kind of the size of a sheet of paper, and it looks great. So here we've got side-by-sides showing off the new Mac Studio that was just announced today. iPad gets most of the information on the screen, comes down to just the bottom of the text with the spatial audio. The Samsung, definitely, again, all the text, the buttons, a little bit more underneath, but the brightness, again, we're not talking technical specs here of nits and everything else. In the real world, practically looking at it, I think the Galaxy, the text is crisper, it's sharper, the white is a little wider, and the colors on that Apple monitor in the actual screenshot of the tablet are definitely more pronounced and vivid. Something else that is interesting, and now we're talking more about software, and you know, I've come to the decision, I think Samsung's a really good software company, and I never thought I would say that, especially about One UI, but even here, the way that they make the menu bars disappear and shrink away to kind of lose that extra bit of fatness and height, it's really impressive, and it works across so many things. Samsung have definitely done a lot of work on their software to make it make sense on a 14.6 inch tablet. And this is a tablet that you can absolutely use as a 2-in-1. I talked about it in the full review, which you can go check out over here. This you can absolutely use as a daily driver. When I pre-ordered it, it came with the case. There goes my pen. It has this back that has a magnetized clip-on, and I can now use this in kickstand mode, just like a Surface Pro. I can set it down. It's really useful. This is the best thing to be able to do with a large tablet. The iPad case is a little different. You can get those flip foldy cases, and that lets you hold it, you know, in one position or vertical position. There's not really any adjustability. And then you can get Apple's case with the keyboard, and that has a couple stops as well. With this, I can use the friction stand anywhere and look at it. I mean, it's just impressive. Then they also include the actual keyboard itself. And I talked about this before, when a keyboard is on this tablet, it literally looks like you are using a laptop. The keyboard itself feels great. The key travel is great. I know it's not really part of the comparison of the tablet itself to the iPad Pro, but I like typing on that a lot more than the Apple keyboard. I don't think Apple's keyboard is very good for the iPads, especially at $349. And it's definitely not as useful. The trackpad's bigger, everything's bigger because of the size that you get. What Samsung have also done with One UI and the way the mouse just instantly comes on, the way that you can flip to DeX mode and use it with a real windowed setting that you cannot do on the iPad, it just makes it easier to use if you need that 2-in-1 functionality. However, let's give the iPad a little bit of kudos, because make no mistake about it, iOS is incredibly polished, and it gets really difficult to judge here between the two, because there's things I love about the Samsung tablet. I love Samsung's notifications. They're full screen. I don't miss them. I miss notifications on my iPad sometimes, and I even have an Apple Watch, and I still miss them. I love the way the widgets work on the Samsung. I talked about widgets in my full review. I'm going to show them to you again, but being able to have widgets that you can set how you want them. I like them slightly translucent. I don't like them solid white. I like the fact that I can change that however I want it. Light mode, dark mode. I can't do any of that with an iPad widget. When I look at my iPad Pro, for example, and this is my home screen, so we're going to kind of soft focus this out a little bit so you can't read all the words. But here's my calendar, and I can't scroll. I can't do anything with it. It's kind of making me just play with the screen. On the Samsung itself, I can actually go in and I can scroll in the calendar and get to where I want to go. I know that might sound crazy. You may be different. I'm an entrepreneur. We like to think about entrepreneurs and business folks here on this show, and that is a killer feature. The whole point of a widget is that I can get to information quickly without having to launch an app. And although I can see a little bit of information here, I really like the way that I can do information over here. And Samsung carries that through all of their apps. So the Samsung reminders, the Samsung notes, lots of features in the widgets. The Apple widgets are a little bit more static, a little bit more flat. They do the job, but that's it. Don't expect any more. Again, your preferences might be different. And certainly, you might think it's okay to not be able to scroll through your email list in a widget and, want to go into your actual mail app. For me, I don't. I think if I'm going to get the widget, I want a little bit more. Definitely pretty. Love the rounded corners. Lots of choices and features on the widgets themselves. I do think overall, iOS is a slightly more polished tablet operating system. Samsung's apps look great. If we were just comparing Samsung's OS or version of Android OS to Apple's, personally, I actually like Samsung's more. The spacing's nicer, there's more white space, which is cleaner, the fonts are pretty. It's a personal preference thing. I do like it more, yet the iPad really is my daily driver. However, what lets this tablet down is the fact that Samsung doesn't control everything, Google does. And so there are things in here that are Google, and you can't change that. You want to open Gmail, it's Google that makes Gmail, and Google's Gmail implementation on Android, for some reason, isn't as smooth and polished as it is on iOS. Call me crazy. Google makes them both. I'm a Gmail guy. I use Google Workspace, so I use all the Google stuff on a very, very regular basis. And I prefer using Gmail to Apple Mail because I can get things that I can't get, like snoozing an email or scheduling to send an email in the future. Yes, I can download the app on here, but when I click on links on a web page, iOS still gives me a little bit of a hard time sometimes and says there's no Mail app installed, even though there is one installed. Don't get those issues on an Android tablet because it's made for Gmail, but Gmail doesn't look as pretty. So what am I saying here with these two big tablets? Look, they're both about $1,000, depending on where you get them, what's on sale, and all that kind of good stuff. Are you going to be disappointed either way? I don't think so. A lot of the choice is going to come down to what ecosystem are you in. If you're a Google Workspace user and you like to be agnostic, the Galaxy Tab is a way to go. If you're all in on Apple and everything else is Apple, you could go for either one, but you're going to have little issues like you can't AirDrop, you can't share things as easy, you haven't got iMessage on here, but you have on your iPhone and that kind of stuff. And that's going to sway you to the iPad. It's a shame because I don't think it really should. I think standing on their own, ignoring ecosystem and everything else, if you were just looking at a tablet to use, I think a lot of people would be surprised at just how strong a package the Galaxy Tab Ultra is and how awesome it is. I do think a lot of people would probably choose it over an Apple device here in this class. However, the real world is we all use phones, we all have watches, we all have TVs and everything else, and a lot of us are going to be invested in an ecosystem at this point, and I think it's a shame. I think it's a shame for us as the consumer. I think it's a shame for manufacturers who are working hard to try and put some great things out, because it's forcing us to choose in ways we might not want to choose. In this case, I use my iPad as a daily driver, but I don't think I'm using the best device for Mikey. I think the Galaxy Tab probably would be it, but the limitations that I get with other Apple users in the house, when we're working in the studio and we're trying to AirPlay, AirDrop and that kind of stuff between MacBook Pros and everything else, it just creates some friction that I don't like to have, and so it leads me away from the Galaxy Tab. Whatever you think, leave me some comments down below. Appreciate you watching. Check out the full review of the Galaxy Tab S8 Ultra here if you want to see more. And until next time, let's go out there, be amazing.